Well, look, there's been a huge debate about the effectiveness of these techniques from the get-go between Justice Department, FBI interrogators who are trained to use rapport building, who are trained to use techniques that can hold up under the scrutiny of in a court of law, and those who wanted to use these more aggressive tactics. And whether or not we got the intelligence that some, such as Vice President Cheney and others, have asserted, we don't know, because the reports on the effectiveness of these techniques remain classified. I think there's a good argument to be made that with the declassification of the techniques that took place last week, we should now get to see all the material about this. The argument that had always been made why we have to keep these classified is we can't let the bad guys know what we might do to them if they were to come into American custody. And the principal argument made by the Justice Department in arguing to the White House why these memos should be declassified is the President on his second day in office said, we're not going to use these techniques anymore. They're not part of something we're going to do. And so therefore, the principal argument for keeping them under wraps evaporated, and I think that was a big part of the decision to release the document. So once we've gone that far, we might as well go the whole way and let everybody see. In fact, interestingly, Vice President Cheney himself is calling for further declassification. That's an oddity. Cheney calling for declassification, but he's now saying, well, people are only getting part of the story, and well, maybe he's right. Of course he's right. We're only getting part of the story, but we should see the full material.
Let's listen to what former Vice President Dick Cheney had to say on Fox News about interrogation techniques.
In the aftermath of 9/11, with 3,000 dead Americans, 16 acres in downtown New York devastated, big hole in the Pentagon, we didn't know a lot about al-Qaeda. We didn't have the body of knowledge we have today. But it was a relatively unknown group. You know a little bit about it, but not a lot. We also, in the aftermath of 9/11, within a very short period of time, were faced with the anthrax attacks. What we did know about al-Qaeda was that they were trying to acquire nuclear weapons. So we had serious concerns, if I can put it like that. In short order, we were faced with the possibility of the AQ-Con network, the black market selling of nuclear weapons technology, the enrichment facilities, the feedstock and weapons design by AQ-Con out of Pakistan to the Libyans, the Iranians, and the North Koreans. And obviously one of the questions that come up then is AQ-Con in Pakistan with this technology and capability dealing with Osama+bin+laden. He may be in Pakistan too. All those kinds of issues meant we had to collect good first-rate intelligence about what was going on so we could prepare and defend against it. And that's what we did.
Michael+isikoff?
I've got to say, sometimes the former Vice President says the most amazing things. I just listened to that. I hadn't heard the full clip. But he said at the time of 9/11, al-Qaeda was a relatively unknown group. I think people in the Justice Department and the FBI would listen to that and say what? Al-Qaeda was responsible for the Africa bombings in 1998. They were responsible for the bombings of the Cole in 2000. They were the principal cause of red alerts being given to the Bush White House in the spring and summer of 2001 before 9/11 for the Vice President, former Vice President, to say that Al-Qaeda after 9/11 was relatively unknown. There was a wealth of information in the United States government about al-Qaeda, who al-Qaeda was. There was a wealth of information about what they were up to, including their interest in acquiring nuclear weapons, which had been laid out in testimony in federal court in the spring of 2001. I'm just, I just heard the Vice President say that, and I'm saying, sometimes he really does need a fact checker to vet some of these statements.